Kenny Day. Yeah.
Who kicked a hole in the sky?
Ken was one of the best. It was just so surreal to know that he had passed.
We lost a really good one. We really did.
He just went far too soon, and you knew that we lost one of the great ones.
Ken Day? Come on, he's an evergreen. It really broke my heart.
It was tough. It was hard because you don't like losing a friend.
I'm sure he was welcomed by a lot of open arms of the wonderful people that went before him.
He and everybody else is up there in heaven just having a wild time.
He was so good. You just always felt like you were in good hands when you worked with Ken.
You always knew when he was your photographer that you were going to look great.
I worked with Ken for about 25 years over at Channel 13. He was an excellent shooter. Ken loves his work.
He was wonderful. He was a great photographer.
He was a great mentor.
Ken Day was an amazing photographer.
Kenny had an eye.
I was jealous of Kenny because he had an eye that no one else had.
I called it the golden eye.
He was just an artist with his camera as a storyteller.
He was the best.
All I wanted to do was just be like him.
I worked to try to make Ken Day notice my work.
He just picked up other stuff that others might miss.
Ken had the biggest heart in the world. His heart, for me, is what made everything beautiful. And it's the reason I wanted to work with him.
Eventually moved into my neighborhood. We only lived about an eighth of a mile away from each other. So we'd see each other all the time. I'd see him at the grocery store. I'd see him at the park walking his dogs. We'd run into each other at Safeway and we're sitting there talking for a half hour. And we look down in the cart and the ice cream's melting.
That shit's funny.
I miss him. I miss him on a daily basis. Because I don't see him at Safeway anymore.
30 years plus that we worked together. We worked on, I think, 4 different medical-focused programs. He'd work with the surgeons and say, where can I be? But I want to be in the middle of it. And he would get all of his scrubs on and his little hat and get in there and be right in the middle of the surgery.
One thing about Kenny is when I talk to him, I'm in San Francisco, but everything's gonna be fine. And then he started asking, how are you doing? How are your daughters doing? I said, Kenny, I'm calling to find out about you and your family. Oh, they're fine, everything's great. Never once did he ever say, he's in pain or struggling or anything. Never once.
When we went to Romania, it was wonderful because being with him, you just knew that we were going to come back with a great product.
Mike and Ken were working on 2 music videos of mine. He was a fantastic makeup artist. He just came over and said, come here, sit down, and applied makeup so that I would look a certain way. I've known a few rock stars in my time, and Ken was a rock star in terms of photography, film, video, just fantastic. A privilege to work with somebody like that.
The music videos that we shot, once they were all done, I would send them to Ken so he could get his final touches on the whole thing. And to Ken's humor, which was always there, the message on my phone, it's like, I really like the piece, I like how it flowed. I think maybe you should change like the first shot, and maybe about 30 seconds in, if we can add some trombone, and then maybe if you got a shot of some clapping monkeys, we can put that in there. So you never knew where it stood in. By the end, it was like, well, was I supposed to change that first shot?
And he had a great sense of humor. great sense of humor.
He had a serious side, but he had a jokey side that would come out.
One of my favorite experiences working with ESPN is every year during the finals, I would get to see not only John Pavlovich, but Ken Day. And the three of us together would reconnect, tell stories, remembering the good times, the good old days when TV was fun.
The thing I remember the most and really appreciated was the day that Ken called me up when there were a lot of killings of young black people around the country. And for over an hour, we talked, and he wanted to share his grief and disappointment and frustration about the whole matter. At that particular time, I knew Kenny was truly a soul brother.
I came to Sacramento in 1995, got hired at KOVR. That's where Ken was at the time. There's a very talented photo staff, and Ken was a big part of that. I'd look at his work, and go, gosh, Ken, that's terrific. How'd you do that? And he was always great at imparting his experience to you and giving you pointers about maybe shoot it this way or that way. Ken meant a lot to me.
When Ken became ill, we often talked about what we do when he was healthy. And he wanted to go to the Eastern Sierra and photograph the night sky, in particular the Milky Way. Well, we never got that chance. But I know Ken's spirit is out there. And I know that spirit is probably getting some of the best pictures of the Milky Way you could ever imagine. I'm going to miss him.
Who kicked a hole in the sky?
Jim and I were both friends with Ken Day, and Ken would call us once in a while and want to talk. And he'd talk to me, and then he'd talk to Jim. Why would he want to talk to Jim? He's my friend. But that was kind of how Ken Day was. He made you feel like you were his most special friend.
All the drives back and forth to LA because he did not want to fly. He might have left something out of his van that he needed. There are only so many things you can talk about. And there was one time it's like I'm looking around and I'm thinking, what do I say, Ken, do you think plants have feelings? He goes, that's a good conversation, Joyce. Of course they have feelings. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we have hit an all-time low until we went on the bathroom tour of I-5.
Many times, we'd get together on assignments over the years, and we would be talking about just life, catching up, or back in town, we'd get together for a lunch, or we'd be on the phone talking, but we were always serious.
Never had a harsh word to say anything, and that says something in the news business.
He never did whine, he never complained, he just did his job.
Never got angry.
Most of us think of him as a mild-mannered, easygoing, soft-spoken, never cursing or losing his cool, but it happened once. And if there's any children in the room, have them cover their ears, because I saw Ken go like this. Gosh darn it!
People say brother from another mother. I'm from Iran. I always called Ken a Persian version.
When you deal with people who do life-changing things like making a transition as a transgender person, I think that really got to him. I think he found it to be an important part of getting the story of people like me out there. I think it was something that became a passion project for him.
We were there to shoot a demonstration. Antifa was out there. We were there to kind of look out for him. He was running around, we were carrying gear. He kept going. I had to ask him for a little break, I said, hey, Ken, I really need to stop and sit down. He was just very tough to keep up with.
Had the good fortune of working 25, 30 years with him doing I don't know how many numbers of documentaries. And I received multiple Emmys, and it was an honor to be able to plunk it down on the table in front of him at lunch, because the last thing he's going to do is go to an Emmy ceremony. It's just not who he was.
I never got the opportunity to tell Ken Day how I really felt about him. I never thought the last time I saw him would be the last time I saw him.
Wow.
It's just a reminder that this world is all about love.
You got to have the love.
I admire greatly his love of God.
He was so special.
I will never forget him.
And I do have a hole in my heart.
I miss him dearly.
He was just beautiful in every way.
I miss him a lot.
It's pretty special.
I hope everything's going well. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.